All right. We are live. It is Good Friday, and I get the opportunity to conduct a great podcast with two phenomenal colleagues of mine from the Leadership Studies program from the North Carolina A&T State University. And in this podcast, we're going to talk about our respective action research projects. We're going to talk about the topics that drew us to it, how it's impacted us, our findings, what are some key things that we want to gain from it. And so we're just going to take on a quick journey with this research project and really talk about how, although we're coming from three different perspectives, there's some uniqueness in all the things that we're doing. And so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get right into it. So please take this opportunity to introduce yourself, Denise. Tell us your background, your field, and where you are in your respective PhD journey.
But thank you so much, Keon, for being our gracious host. You are doing great. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
So my name is Denise Campbell, and I believe as we have worked together in this project, I found that I am the oldest one in the wheel, so to speak. I started in 21. So I have 30 more days, and then I get to lay back and not do homework. My family will be so excited to not hear the excuse, well, can you go? I have homework. They see the homework emoji every day. So, but I've had 25 years in public administration. My background, just real quick, I have a BBA from Howard University. I got my MPA at North Carolina Central. And then I was fortunate enough to be allowed into this program for a PhD in leadership studies. My research comes from my time in public service. I'm looking to see what obstacles women of color, African-American women, face when they try to navigate the career waters of law enforcement. And in my research, I found so many obstacles, but then one stood out, which is the Queen Bee syndrome, which has different meanings to different people, but it has not been studied in African-American women in law enforcement or military. So I think that's going to be interesting. And I look forward to sharing that with as many people who are willing to listen.
Excellent. And Brandon, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Brendan Key, and this is my first year in the program, the Leadership Studies program. And yes, I am a school administrator, K-12 administrator for the Gilbert County School District here in North Carolina. And I'm also a chaplain in the United States Army. That is a part of my professional background. I have a Master's of Divinity as well as a Master's in School Administration, and my undergraduate degree is a Bachelor's in Electrical Engineering and Military Leadership.
Wow.
Regarding my research interests, I started this program. I know I'm still fresh into it, but I started this program with the thoughts of understanding how Black men matriculate through public education and what it looks like for Black male leadership. So one thing that I've noticed in my experience from becoming a teacher, even to becoming an administrator, is that there are men in our roles as leaders within the district, but there are not many men that's willing to look back, Sankofa, right? They're not really willing to look back and pull up these other men that are teachers or that may be substitute teachers or bus drivers, whoever, to say, hey, you can be a part of this leadership cohort, this leadership agenda for public education. A lot of men and women in education, they say, hey, we love the fact that you're a Black male in education. It's not too many, but there are a lot of Black men in education. But the thing is that when we get into positions of power, we're so tired that it's hard for us to reach back to pull those moving forward. So I'm looking into my research at like imposter syndrome or the traumas that Black men face going through the educational system and how it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, and even where that starts in higher ed. So even for our action research project, we'll break this down in a second, but what does that look like in higher ed, and how can we move our students from the collegiate perspective into educational roles, into leadership, whether it be K-12 or higher ed?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Powerful. And so it's only fitting that we got a third year first year, and then I come in as the middle of the second year. So my background is in public health, with an emphasis on mental health, especially with mental health advocacy and policy development. And so, from my research perspective, I'm looking at the intersectionality between good leadership and mental health, and how that not only impacts one's mental health, but also what are those lived experiences that are being captured from that. So I intend to conduct a phenomenological study on the lived experiences of Black men who work in the mental health field, and how that has impacted their well-being and just their ability to succeed and really sustain in the field. And so I'm excited about the possibilities that's coming from that. Being someone who has had an opportunity to matriculate with AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, as a leader and as an advocate, and I found myself being one of the few Black, if not the only Black men in those rooms. And so this is going to give me an opportunity to contribute more into that conversation, and just utilize that as a driving force as to what we want to see changed, and how can we make these environments more equitable so that Black men can thrive, because as we all know, statistically, it is an area that is in need. But yeah, that is my focus. And like I said, I'm at my second year, so now I'm beginning to really find my rhythm on what this journey is going to look like, and just looking forward for the things to come. So
outstanding.
thank you. So we have a diverse group, we have diverse backgrounds and research interests. So just briefly, kind of share with our audience, why did you pick the particular topic that you wanted to focus on in this research project for Dr. Jackson's course? And Brendan, we can start with you, and then we'll go to you, Denise.
Yeah, sure. So I spoke on, or I moved to this action research project, which is entitled "Examining the Impact of DEI Program Changes in U.S. Higher Education: Studying North Carolina A&T and National Trends." The basis for the action research project was, like I said, in the beginning, where does it start for our young men not feeling supported moving into K-12 or higher education? Where does it start? Are there Black men in these places or spaces that say, "Hey, how can we help you get to the next space?" Well, I wasn't able to do that just from a Black male perspective, right? I wanted to see what DEI looked like from a collegiate perspective, just from college students in general. So I'm kind of going broad, and then I'll hone in a little bit more with, the PhD research in general. But for the action research piece, knowing that in today's society, there are DEI initiatives and programs that are being dismantled, they're being changed. And from a collegiate perspective, from the UNC system to the state of New York system, the University of Texas system, Florida State system, all of these systems have now moved towards eliminating what DEI looks like in their policies based upon Supreme Court decisions. And we have to figure out how to maintain diversity, right, and inclusion, and maintain it from a healthy perspective. So my action research project was really based on, do students feel heard? Do students of different cultures, classes, and creeds, do they feel heard? Do they feel seen? Do they even notice that there's a DEI office at A&T? Do they notice that inclusion is a thing at a HBCU? Because from a PWI perspective, these students, they have to make their own space. Right. We could talk about what that looks like from another, as we move on with challenges and things like that. But that's where I came from. That was my interest. How can these students, even at a HBCU versus a PWI, how do they look at diversity, equity, inclusion? And then how can they move into the professional sector, mine specifically public education?
Excellent. Denise, what about on your end, topic and why that particular focus?
So after serving the city for 25 plus years, and now offering myself as a consultant in the city's HR department, obviously I wanted to make sure I continued on serving. So I volunteer with Meals on Wheels of Durham, which offers food and other things like pet food and holiday gifts to senior citizens who are homebound or shut in and cannot seek travel to get food and come, bring it home. So with that being said, I started to notice that one particular neighborhood that has a lot of elderly within it had all these specialized healthcare systems popping up, like Oak Street and Centerville, but they were right next to the actual hospital. There's all these specialized things for seniors, and there's senior living in this one particular neighborhood, but there's no connectivity. And I'm thinking, okay, do y'all realize? So as I work with the seniors at Meals on Wheels, I said, do y'all realize these two places have opened up? Like, no, really? I said, yeah, you don't have to go to the ER or the doctor. You can get a same day visit that comes from a place of senior care only. Period. They don't do babies. They don't do other people. They just do senior care. And by the neighborhood not having an engagement in education causes an awareness gap that doesn't serve the seniors as well as it possibly could. So that's where it came from. Plus, as I age, I want to make sure that, look, I know how to get these resources, and word of mouth apparently seems to be the best way to do it. So that's where I came from, a place of love.
No, excellent point. And for me, with my background being in public health and especially with mental health, I wanted to look at the power of partnerships and how cross-sector partnerships can help mitigate the social determinants of health. And as we know, when we talk about the social determinants of health, these are what has been classified as the non-medical factors that impacts our community outcomes. So everything from where you live to where you worship, to your access to healthcare, education, social construct, finance dynamics, all of those things play a role. And so for my action research project, I wanted to explore the effectiveness of that. What are our community leaders seeing? Do they work primarily in the healthcare sector? Do they work primarily in our communities? And based on their experiences, are they seeing effective partnerships? And for the ones that are being effective, what has been the key that has enabled them to get those good outcomes, right? And then for the ones that have failed, what are some do's and don'ts that we need to be mindful of so that we can develop those, greater partnerships in the future? So it was just something that, I just want to kind of piggyback and build upon because it is something that I've already been familiar with from my own lived experiences, whether it's doing it through AFSP or working in public health, is that we cannot do this with just healthcare providers by ourselves. There has to be some level of connection, some level of collaborative partnership to accomplish these goals. And so as we get into the next part of this discussion, I'm intrigued to see, from a research design standpoint, share with the audience briefly, whether you wanted to go the qualitative route, quantitative route, and in deciding that, were there any particular challenges that you had to overcome?
Denise, you can go ahead and go one first last time. So
well, yeah, we all love a good story, and so phenomenological was what I have been drawn to for my own research for school. But for this type of connectivity with the resources and the seniors, I used a qualitative approach that seemed to fit a little bit better. I used the grounded theory process, and what it tells you is that you're examining the process of the procedures that you are looking at. So the process of educating and engagement, what does that look like from the Department of Health and Human Services? What does it look like from AARP? What does it look like from the two specialized care facilities, Oak Street and Centerville? What does it look like to senior citizens who live in the neighborhood? So if the process of connecting education and engagement is not working, you're able to develop a theory of what is missing, what makes it not work, or what makes it work. So I know it's a loose approach to grounded theory because normally with Creswell and Poth said that, you should have a massive enough number of participants, and it should be kind of like almost like you're living with them, kind of close to the was it infographic? I was like, I can't live with them because I only got a semester. So I felt that with this application, plus she mentioned ARP was actually a type of method and design. So I did do a little research on that and tried to apply some of the schematics to make it fit the project. Obviously, I didn't want to go too far left, but that's what I used. And I used I didn't use a survey. I used interview. So, and I know we'll talk about survey versus interview. I will say that by having your questions, obviously ahead of time, and knowing that an interview is a conversation, it can go askew, but you have to just make sure you maintain control of it and try to actually get the answers that you're looking for. Sometimes they'll just start talking and they'll answer all the questions. I had the guy from ARP, sweetest man you ever want to talk to. You almost want to sit on his porch and just sit there and talk to him. That's how the conversation went. And also the representative from DHSS, he was like, what's the guy from ARP? I don't know him. And they should, but they don't. So it was a helpful conversation. So yes, I used the grounded theory with interviews, roughly 5 to 6 interview questions for each participant.
Cool. Sounds very intriguing. And Brendan, on your end, tell us a little bit about your design and if there are any particular challenges you foresee coming or you have experienced so far in the research project.
So I love the action research model because it gets us into the weeds. Action research in itself is cyclical, right? So it allows you to understand the problem based upon your stimuli or based upon the people that you want to work with. But then when you think you've found the answer, there's a change. So action research allows you to kind of move with the change and to be flexible as the change takes place. For me, I did an interview and we did surveys. I say I did surveys. I say we because you need more than one person to do a survey. But for the interview space, I was actually able to talk to the DEI coordinator, or it's the Office of Cultural Initiatives and Affairs at A&T, and kind of pick his brain on what DEI looks like and how the program has been, how it's evolved over the years. Beautiful part about it is that this was the same gentleman who organized DEI initiatives when I was an undergrad. So in 2010, 2011, 2012, he's been the same gentleman. It was amazing because we remember one another and it was a full circle experience for one. He let me know, that there are things that he's felt supported in. Not saying he's not supported through the university, but like staffing. He's the only one actually on staff, and all the students are volunteers to help support with programming. Well, if we're pushing DEI initiatives, why isn't the university bringing in a little more funding so that we can do work study within this program? Why isn't the university having events that aren't geared that aren't initiated by the university, but they have to be initiated by the students? And a lot of that's political. And I'm learning that. I'm seeing that even though when Chancellor Martin was in role, he was doing preeminence 2020, and before that, there were always initiatives for the college community, but I don't think it was as important to have DEI initiatives because we're at HBCU. So it's like, oh, we already kind of made it. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's kind of the way we were going, especially with the interview. So I think it was great to interview him, to get his perspective as a Black man who was over this program. Also, when it came to surveys, I interviewed six. I have it right here. I interviewed 6 individuals of all different nationalities: African American, Native American, Sudanese, biracial. And the biracial was African American and white, which was great to get a different perspective. I will say, a challenge, or I did not find a Caucasian person, a white person to interview in this space. And I probably could have had I looked a little bit deeper, but I didn't. But all of them were undergraduate students, and except for the 2 faculty members I was able to interview. So we had 3 students and 2 faculty members. I said 6, I'm sorry, 5. 3 students, 2 faculty members, all who had different questions to answer. And then some of them had questions to answer together just to see what their perspectives were, what the ideals were, and how they aligned. And if DEI is actually prominent on campus and what changes need to be made. I'll say one question I asked was, how do you think DEI changes at North Carolina A&T compared to perceptions of national trends in higher education? And the students were some of the students were oblivious that there was even a DEI office available. They're like, what? Like, why do we need diversity, equity, inclusion when we're at an HBCU, a land-grant institution, and we have the same opportunities as other people? While I think that's great, I will say, like my grandmother told me, you always got to work twice as hard to get to the same place.
Amen.
And after doing this research, even these students being ignorant to what DEI is at their own university means that we still need to work twice as hard to get to the place where we're recognizing our own diversity, equity, and need for inclusion, even as a Black community. So yeah, I use both interview and survey, and I'm grateful that I did.
Absolutely,
Well,
absolutely. Thank you for spotting that. And and just as a segue to on my end, I simply did a qualitative approach where I built it around a survey. And within that survey, I wanted to capture some key things. Number one, I wanted just a general demographic background, what field they worked in, whether it was multiple fields from healthcare to policy advocacy, community partnerships. But I also wanted to kind of get a general gauge of their educational background. Do they have a master's, a doctorate, PhD, trade school, bachelor's, or no higher education at all? Because I wanted to open up that field. But the biggest thing was I just broke it up into different sections where on a Likert scale, whether they strongly agreed or strongly disagreed on just a certain series of questions that looked at everything from the importance of partnerships, barriers and challenges that they deal with, as well as the future direction of what these strategies should look like. And then in the midst of all that, what are some things that they're seeing, and if those, social determinants of health are being addressed and being resolved in their own respective communities. And so being able to look at that and to see those different dynamics, it was very eye-opening. And, I came in with my own assumptions. I'll be honest, I came in with my own bias, thinking that, hey, when it comes to this question, everybody is going to agree. Until I got to this one question in the survey, and it talked about the lack of availability of resources and funding. And so my natural assumption is, hey, without the lack of resources and funding, a partnership is not going to be able to thrive. Everybody did not agree, because a lot of people said, hey, we can still get work done. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the money or the resource. It has to be about the vision and the plan and having people who buy into that. So I thought that was very comforting to see that, and to see that data show that it wasn't all leaning towards one direction. And so it really encompassed, this final point that I wanted to bring home, that I wanted all of us to bring home. And that is, although we're each doing a different topic with different perspectives, everything from the impact of DEI to our elderly and senior community and partnerships and things of that nature, and what that intersectionality and that sharing of information goes, there's a common thread that connects all three of us. And that is, how do we define, or in this case, redefine inclusivity? Whether it's including different student populations that are attending HBCUs so that they can feel they're at home, or we're including more community and collaborative partnerships to support our senior communities or to address social determinants of health. That was the magic thread that combined us all. And so as we wrap this up, I wanted to hear you all's perspective on how has this opened your eyes in the ways that we should redefine inclusivity, and what should be some key next steps we need to be mindful of.
Outstanding. I was, as we did our work and we, developed that thread, I took that back and said, if not for this project, some of the people that I interviewed said, I would not have known of the awareness gap that you have discovered with your work. And I want you to continue with your work, if you could, to make sure that we have these right relationships at the right time. So with that said, I'll be still working with seniors and, volunteering at the Central Well location, or volunteering with DHSS, or even with the Department of Social Security, which I found was also lacking in a connectivity. That as a senior, you should have empowerment so that you can be included in all the health care that's available, just as any other category of population within the county.
I think for me, which is thank you, and it was great. I think that thread. One thing is resources.
Mm-hmm.
I think being intentional about where the resources come from, and then realizing who actually supports DEI initiatives and who doesn't. From a university perspective, we talked about it in the course at one point about faith-based organizations.
Correct.
What does the faith-based feel? What does that provide for our students? And I think that in itself, it brings multiple cultures, classes, and creeds together in one space.
Mm-hmm.
So campus ministry. I honestly think that my call, it includes campus ministry. And what that looks like is bringing others together to let them know that even if the university, the United States, whoever, if they don't support DEI, the faith will, because we'll all come together as one, in this space to know who we are and what we're about. I also think, lastly, for me, inclusivity means bringing more initiatives to the university so that students can feel heard. No matter what community they're a part of, no matter what culture they're a part of, they can feel heard and seen. And those initiatives can be blasted out large enough to where we can have some support come back to the university.
Mm.
Excellent. Well stated. And just on my end, just continuing to learn to bring more diverse voices to those tables, right? To hear, to learn from those lived experiences, and to continue to augment that mindfulness as to what that looks like, so that we can continue to engage one another, continue to learn from one another, but to ultimately make sure that as we develop these respective strategies, that we are including those individuals in the process, not just sending a survey out, doing a community health needs assessment and documenting that data, and then that's it. There needs to be some follow-up. And so that's how, with my respective project and learning from you all, that, I want to help redefine inclusivity, is that we want to be more mindful of who is coming to the table, be more mindful of the way we develop these strategies, but also be very intentional in making sure that our partners are involved in the process from beginning to end. And so on that note, I want to personally thank you all for taking time out of your respective schedules, out of your research journey, to share with our remarkable audience about the power of our action research projects, the diversity in it. And I also want to thank Dr. Jackson for challenging us, for helping us to sharpen these skills. And as our brother Chaplin like to state, iron sharpens iron. And this is what it's about. So Brendan, Denise, thank you for sharing your perspective, your insights, your expertise. And I'm looking forward to each of us walking that stage so that we can be the new doctors and the new leaders of this leadership studies program and for our community. So
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right.
Peace.
Thank you.